evening, afternoon, or morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Terrell Williams, and I serve as the Associate Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Office of Admission at MIT Sloan. We want to thank you all for joining us tonight for another installment of our Identity and Inclusion series. At tonight's event, we're going to focus on those who are veterans and have previously served in the military branches. I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to host tonight's event. But before we begin, I want to start with this land acknowledgement statement from MIT. So MIT acknowledges Indigenous peoples as the traditional stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists between them and traditional territories. The land on which we sit is the traditional unceded territory of the Wampanoag Nation. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced occupation of the territory, and we honor and respect the many diverse Indigenous people connected from time immemorial to this land on which we now gather. Our mission at MIT Sloan is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world and to generate ideas that advance the management practice. I firmly believe that through tonight's panel discussion, as well as other recruiting activities throughout the remainder of the semester that you all participate in, you will see our commitment to creating a more diverse and inclusive community. Now I want to transition to our moderator for this evening. I'll have Ryan, who will share a brief intro about himself and introduce our panelists for this session. So Ryan, the floor is yours.
Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Court, originally coming from the Marine Corps, where I was an intelligence officer for a little over 8 years, doing human intelligence, and then switching over to special operations a few years before transitioning out. I'm currently in a second year LGO, so that's the Leaders for Global Operations program, which is the dual degree that MIT has. It's an MS and MBA. MS can be in a engineering discipline of your choice. I'm doing computer science and electrical engineering, and currently on my internship. It's a 6-month-long internship, so continuing with that at this point. I will turn it over to Ashley for.
Great. I'm Ashley Ferguson. I was an MBA 2019. Before I went to Sloan, I was a naval aviator, so an F-18 weapons systems officer, primarily out of Virginia Beach. After Sloan, I spent a year at McKinsey, so I went the consulting track. And then for the last 3 years, I've actually still been in the Boston area working for a startup called Merlin. And we develop software. It's an autonomous aviation capability that we're working on.
Sungi.
Hi, I'm Sungi Cho. I am a current student. I'm a second year along with Ryan. Ryan was also my Ocean, Go Pacifics. You guys will find out more about that later. I spent 9 years in the Army. I flew UH-60s, and I got out at my last duty station was JBLM. And before my first year at Sloan. Afterwards, I spent the past summer at a company called Form Labs. They are a late stage startup in the Somerville area, so greater Cambridge area. And they were also a spinoff out of the MIT Media Lab. And I am going back there next year. Excited to meet you all.
Jay.
Hey everyone, my name is Jay Hernandez. I'm a second year MBA student. I was in the Marine Corps and exited in 2012. And after that, I was a mechanical engineer at ExxonMobil for about 4 years. Then came to the MBA program, and I'll be returning to Bain, Denver next year.
And last but not least, Nate.
Hey everybody, Nate Pepper. I'm a LGO 2017. Before that, I was in the United States Army, flew H-64s or Apache helicopters. Joined LGO summer of 2015. I did a dual degree with Aero Astro, and then did my internship at Boeing, a phenomenal experience up in Seattle. Another 6-month internship like Ryan was mentioning for LGO. And then after that, I ended up moving back to Arizona and joining Intel Corporation. So now I'm in our Health and Life Sciences group, focus on strategy and innovation, partnerships across the ecosystem. So
okay, so as far as the plan of events for tonight, we will do about 30 minutes of questions where I'll just be going through some questions. These are ones that come up quite a bit when we receive interested applicants on the veteran side. We'll talk through that. We'll leave about 20 minutes for Q&A at the end. If you have any questions that come up throughout, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A chat box, and they will either be answered by the panelists during the discussion, during the Q&A, or separately by Terrell throughout it. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question is, why did you transition when you did, and why did you end up choosing business school, specifically Sloan? If anybody wants to take that.
I'll jump on that. So I spent about 11 years in the service. I think, Nate, similar background in aviation, your commitment ends up being a little bit longer. So I did my minimum commitment. I ended up extending a couple extra years for a follow-on requirement, and just really to figure out what I wanted to do next. And back in 2016, 15, when I was starting to think about transitioning, the MBA was really popular. So I think it's something that's grown in popularity over the years. And it was really, really popular in the F-18 community at the time. So I was fortunate to have friends who had recently transitioned, who had sort of laid the groundwork and paved the way for us, either attending Sloan or, HBS, Wharton, some of the bigger names. For me, it came down to the fact that I was really in a stage of my life where I loved what I was doing, but I wanted to see what else was out there and what else I could do. And while I was still sort of mid-career and at an age where I felt like I could start a new career over and not feel too far behind. So that was really what drove it for me. I was single at the time, so the decision was really on me. I didn't have to move a family. I didn't have to, take some of those things into consideration. So happy to expand on that later if it's helpful for folks. But why I chose Sloan, I applied to several business schools first round. I got into Wharton and Sloan, and ultimately it came down to my experience when I came on my visit. I don't think you can go wrong when it comes to where you end up. But for me, it felt like a smaller community. My friends at Sloan all knew one another. The network was very helpful. You'll hear the term over and over again, Sloanies helping Sloanies. And that is still true to this day. Anytime I'm looking for a new opportunity or a question or someone to bounce ideas off of, we still have our ocean chats. They're still active. I still talk to all my friends here. It's actually truly amazing. And I feel like I know everybody at least at a surface level that I graduated with. So for me, it was an easy decision, and I'd do it again.
Yeah, I think I'll jump next. So for me, I was at a point where in my Army career, my ADSA was complete. I stayed on, just finished out company command, just in terms of what I wanted to do while I was in the Army. And after that, I realized that, hey, I had a newborn. She, I think at the time, was about 3 months old when I was starting my transition period. And I realized that in the next 3 years, I have 3 to 4 moves, just based on how my timeline looks like. So family considerations is definitely near the top, if not the top, at certain points in my time. Additionally, at that point, I really I had a stretch before I wanted to do anything else, where I really got value out of what I wanted to do out of the Army, and so opportunity was another thing. And so Sloan. I chose Sloan mostly because I'm super interested in tech. I love the tech side of the house. So when you talk about computational AI, when you talk about 3D printing, I love the synergy between hardware, software. There's a phrase at MIT called mind in hand, mens in manus. And that's really one thing that I love, because you can take something from, and this is also the reason why I joined the company I'm going to, is you can take something from your head and literally turn it into physical product in a few hours. So it's awesome. So if you guys want to talk deep tech, definitely love that stuff.
I'll piggyback off of that then. So for me, it was kind of the same, as a little bit opposite Ashley. Mine was definitely family driven, kind of like Stungy mentioned. Had done my time after flight commitment, so I was about 8.5 years, I think, when I got out. Had the option to either stay in and go the grad school route through the military and still go to whatever school I decided to choose, or get out. But I think a lot of the family decisions is why I decided that it just wasn't going to be a good fit for my wife and I. So came to Sloan with a kid, had another kid while we were there, which was an eye-opening experience in the middle of finals week. I think for the aspects of Sloan was definitely driven by the LGO program. That's the one that I was very excited about. So like Sungie's talking about, just all the technical acumen, all the amazing innovation and stuff that happens at MIT, all that kind of stuff was what really kind of resonated with me. I was I feel like I was, very technical or, into the books and things like that back in my undergrad. And then I kind of moved away from that, obviously, in the, active duty kind of operational roles and things like that. So leadership, lots of different life experiences, stuff like that, which was amazing. But I definitely want to get back kind of in the roots of one, how do you translate that into kind of, business acumen with the MBA side of the house? and obviously like the more deeply technical kind of get back in the weeds of like hardcore engineering and how things work, and the ability to kind of find the happy medium between those two. So I just thought LGO was an amazing opportunity for that, and that's what made me choose Sloan over all the other options.
For the admins in the group, I do want to point out that not everybody at Sloan is an aviator or Marine. It just happens to be what we have here today. Apologies.
But we do have a lot of aviators, so I mean, they just tend to gravitate towards MIT. That's how it goes. Thanks for your answers. It seems commonalities across the board, whether it's you're looking for a career change, something different to move towards next. It could be family driven. I know on my side, it was definitely a lot of that is the family driven side. Me and my wife were looking to settle down as well, so I definitely understand that. Did any of you find the transition difficult? I know for me, coming from active duty Marine Corps to, hitting optimization and, into machine learning algorithms, the transition was a little bit difficult for me in the first couple of weeks. Did you all find the transition hard? Is there anything that helped to ease the transition?
I'll jump on that. For me, I think the transition was it was a really big cultural shift or just struggle. I think just from being in an active duty, I just got back from Afghanistan, I think 6 months prior, just getting after it, and then just coming into this massive cultural melting pot of people, from across the world and trying to share experience and realize we're pretty for lack of better terms, I don't know, just myopic or dense. I was just so ingrained in everything that I had done, training and deploying and stuff like that. So but I think what really helped was what's the core team, not the ocean, but your closer team. I don't remember all the terms for it anymore, but they were kind of my close confidants, which was really helpful just to have those really open, transparent conversations. They were very good about asking a lot of questions and just kind of bouncing ideas off me or providing positive feedback on hey, that's great, but just don't forget, whatever it is, that, you've got people from these countries you might have been around, or, people that maybe geopolitically we aren't the best friends with and things like that. So that was really helpful to kind of help ground me. And then at the same time, just having that connection, they knew that's just Nate. Let's rein them in as we go out for C functions and stuff like that. It's going to be okay. And it was, nothing bad happened, nothing like that, but it's just a great to know that there's people out there that, from day one when I met them, they just had my back, and helped with that a lot. So, and then you still have the other veterans around too. So you can still, kind of have that same camaraderie and that connection as well. There's the Veterans Club, which is hosting this panel right now. There's other veterans groups across MIT as well that maybe aren't as closely connected as the Sloan one was, at least when I was there a couple of years back. But there's people all over the campus, and there's a lot of Lincoln Labs and DoD research laboratories and stuff like that too. So you'll still run into people, which I think is a great part of it as well.
Yeah, I'll just double tap that. I think everything Nate said, it's different at the beginning. I was the same way. I left deployment in June on an aircraft carrier over flying missions in Syria and Iraq, and I started school in August. So definitely a big transition. I think one of the things I didn't say in the last answer was part of the reason I chose Sloan was that the vets group was also a little smaller. So I knew it would put me in a growth zone where I would be forced, which was a good thing, to go meet other people that had very different backgrounds. And I actually think the MBA is a really great way to spend 2 years learning how to be normal person again. Because, that can be really daunting, depending on when you separate from the service and what you did. But the other thing I'll say is give it some time. It took me, I would say, at least the entire first semester to really feel comfortable. You might see folks that seem like they're all really close. It wasn't really till I went on the ski trip, which took place right before school started again around February, the second semester, where I was like, all right, everyone had some time to relax, spend some time together, create some more sort of authentic relationships. And that was when, from there on out, it was, again, continue to be one of the best decisions I've ever made. So my only advice to add on to Nate is just give it some time if it's not, easy at first.
So we touched a little bit on the interaction within the club. How did you guys utilize the club, either before, during, or after your time at Sloan? And have you had interactions with other veteran alumni? Can you just speak to kind of the culture associated with the Vets Club and some of the resources that they might be able to provide?
Yeah, I think the probably the biggest resource is probably what Ashley already kind of has said, right? Like there's your core team, right, which are, like everyone has in terms of like going from there, but like in terms of like culturally, right? Um, Terrell, I can't remember what the actual like emissions is, but in terms of like the international students is like 40%, right? And so a lot of people in the military do have multinational like experience, but this is like 40% of your working core team, right? So like it's a huge portion of that, and so the benefit of having like the vets club with you is like because a lot of you guys, a lot of us like talk the same vernacular or coming from the same vernacular. Like if Nate and I talk about like rotor speeds within limits, like off orders, right? Time on targets, right? Like it just flush back memories. Like we can still talk about that if we needed to. And I actually had a conversation with a dude today. It was the same thing. And so that's always good. In addition to that, like the vets like to stick together, and the only thing vets like doing more than is talking to other vets, right? So just it's an amazing resource. It's if nothing else, it's a nice social club because we're all similar in, like culturally. But that's probably the number one resource I would say is an amazing networking thing.
Yeah, I think it definitely serves as kind of like a fallback or a social net, and you always have a group that you know that you can jive with and fall back to if you want to kind of, if you're feeling overwhelmed with all the activities going on, just because there's always something going on at MIT. It's difficult to prioritize time sometimes, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So it's always good to have that fallback group with you. I know on the interacting with alumni, I don't know if other panelists have had this experience, but anytime I'm talking with a company or I'm at a networking event, I will usually seek out the veteran, and I'll typically get the honest, the truth answer for a lot of the questions associated with like company culture, compensation, what's work-life balance seem like. And, it's a very, very quick way to get to the ground truth of what that company is and whether or not it's going to be a good fit for me. So I have found huge success anytime I'm at a company event or a networking thing is finding an actual veteran there to talk with. And a lot of times there's usually a Sloan veteran at some of these companies as well. So that's been successful on my side, and I know it's saved me a lot of hassle with some of these companies of preventing me from going through multiple rounds of interviews with them.
And this isn't Sloan specific, but like that won't change going forward. Like I have that experience all the time, like regardless of Sloan, LGO, things like that, just talking to people, you can usually get, the most honest, transparent, just, direct feedback from anybody about any question you have by just reaching out to them. I mean, I think LinkedIn's a powerful tool, or any, platforms like that, or if you go to networking events, but if you can search out other veterans, like it's, I don't think it ever changes. Like people are just looking to give back to the community. So Sloan specific, I mean, I had a bunch of great buddies. I still, talk trash with them, have our fantasy football leagues and all that kind of stuff. So still give each other a hard time, even after all these years. Like we haven't been in the military for, I don't know how many years. It's coming up on what, eight years now, I guess. So, and it's still the same stuff. So, yeah, I just say it's great. I think the Sloan community was great. I already kind of alluded to some of the stuff, just that sounding board when you initially get to school, help, still have that camaraderie, instant friends, stuff like that, people you can talk to. And then you all kind of have to like mellow out a little bit together, which is good to see too. So, but then you obviously get a little jazzed up when you're with each other. So, overall, the veteran alumni community has been great.
That's great to hear. As switching to like application tips, I know for some of us it's been a little bit longer on the application side, and then some more recent. Do you remember any salient application tips, some of the better ones that you received as you were going through the process as it relates to transitioning from the military and receiving an invite to Sloan? Or would you give any advice to candidates applying to MIT? What's some of your top advice that you would give?
I could start there. So what I'd say is don't let one area of your application, whether it's really strong or, in your opinion, relatively weak, sort of be the thing that stands out the most, and make sure that you are telling the full story across all of the various application mechanisms, right? So at least when I applied, at the time there was the actual application itself, we had to write an essay or two. I believe the year after I went there, they started implementing a video. I'm not sure if they still do that. And then you have referrals and recommendations that you source from folks that you've worked for. And when I would do that, when I would reach out to folks that I wanted to write a recommendation on my behalf, I had them focus on different areas. So I'd reach out to one, have them describe the way I worked maybe as a teammate, as a peer or something like that. And then I'd have another one reflect across, some of the other strengths I had as a leader within my unit. Just things that varied. And then I made sure that those stories painted parts of a picture of me that my essay then went on to, elaborate on or tell another side of me. So just don't let anyone don't repeat the same story across all of the various ways that you're applying. And again, if you feel like your GMAT score is low and you continue to work on it, but it's just not getting it to where you want it to be, make sure that you're talking about that a little bit somehow in your application and how you plan to fix that. Turn that into a strength. I think, my GMAT was high sixes, just being completely transparent. And I was worried about it, but I talked about how my entire life, I've always done things that I felt like were really hard and were the hard thing to do. And you'd be better off for having done them because you'd learn more. Why go to business school if you already know all of the topics? I was going there to learn and get better at some of that stuff. So, and a relatively general advice, but it was advice that was passed on to me from other folks and it's really helpful.
I think, so I definitely agree with all that. I think the other one is like, I'm assuming most of the people that are listening to this right now, like you have a ton of like very unique like experience compared to anybody in the world. So don't downplay it. Don't try to translate it too much where you completely take all like the awesome stuff out of it or like the responsibility, leadership, like responsibility that you had. Like just make sure you're like emphasizing that stuff and it's very obvious. I see some stuff online where people talk about like, oh yeah, completely, you're not a company commander, you're a, a general manager, like using other terminology like admissions and, the vets club and everybody else, like they know that terminology, like they understand that's kind of their job to make sure it's there. You still kind of have to lay out like the specifics of it. Definitely watch like the acronyms because not everybody knows all the acronyms. Think about what you're putting on those applications. If you actually get selected for like interview rounds and stuff like that, it's a pretty cool story. But like our community is a lot smaller than you think. When I was applying for LGO and I showed up for, I think it's like the first like in-person kind of thing that we did in like the LGO area. I actually just out of the blind ran into like two of like my really close friends from school. We had no idea that each other were applying to the program. Just showed up. Everybody just like went crazy, bear hugs, picking each other up, stuff like that. And I think that's why like all three of us got in. Just because they're like, these guys are amazing. Like, we just want these personalities as part of the program. So definitely just keep that in mind. Like anytime, don't go in there walking around like a robot, talking like a robot, thinking that you're better than anybody else because of whatever cool person thing you did back in the day. Just be a human being, engage with everybody. Everybody's kind of looking at you. So just like be a genuine, person, because that's the kind of people they want. They don't want the people that are going to come in and not give back to the community and not, be able to relate with the other people that they're going to invite into that class. So that'd be my two big points there.
Yeah, I think with the video, I think that's the people get kind of bogged down with the idea of like, oh, what am I going to do in this video? But I think that's a really cool time to kind of showcase exactly what they said. You get to bring your own personality and showcase what you specifically will bring to the program and your cohort.
Hey,
oh,
Jay,
and if you can get I was gonna say, if you can get a helicopter in the background, that's pretty awesome. It always seems like people have like a tank or like some aircraft in the background. I think that helps in some way.
Hey, Jay. Also, while you're on it, we had a question in the chat talking about do you feel that being enlisted hurts or limits your chance? I know you're one of our sole enlisteds on the panel. Can you speak to that side and how you felt going through the process?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say it's a limitation. If anything, it makes you that much more unique. I mean, there's not a whole lot of enlisted folks, I think, across a lot of the top programs. But yeah, I mean, if you can have additional experience outside of your military experience, that only kind of broadens you and like paints a unique picture of you. So I would definitely say it doesn't hinder you. If anything, if you can play it to your strength, and it'll help you out.
All right, excellent. And then we'll move on to one of the last questions we'll talk about before moving into Q&A more than likely. So we've talked about family quite a bit. Since most of the time veterans are on the older side of applicants with more experience, either due to service commitments or, just how timing works out with PCSs. Can some of the panelists that have families or were planning to have families, or can they speak to that experience? And how was your experience either bringing a kid to MIT, having a kid at MIT, or planning for it afterwards? We'll take all of those.
Yeah, so I'll take this one just because. So my daughter is what I've heard been deemed as Sloan famous. She's like a little over everyone's Instagram. She's like at Sloan. She's like I think we literally dressed up as what do we dress up as? Pikachu for Halloween. Oh yeah, Ryan. I think Ryan was there too as well. But it's not a bad experience. It's not like anything else. It's just different, right? And so when I really say that is, you're not going to have, like, flat out as a parent, like, you have obligations, you have responsibilities, like you understand that, like, knowing making decisions to have a kid. And I don't really have to reiterate that, but what I'm saying though is what that means though is, like, it also means that you're not going to be drinking at like 7 o'clock on Thursday, like, if that makes sense, right? Like, there's my chats are probably blowing up for like, hey, there's after parties, there's parties, etc. Like, who's doing this after this event, right? One, that's the rule of the MBA is if you want to go something, send a chat out like to the entire class. A lot of people will show up, right? If that's your ocean, the entire class, like pick an event. The second part of that too is it really helps the parents kind of stick within the parents groups, just like the singles, like kind of thing with like the Sloanie Lonelies. I don't know what they're called this year, but like the Sloanie Lonelies call it like the Lonely Sloanies. But either way, like you kind of segregate towards your SO, like your status of SO, and to include like my half significant other, which is like my daughter. She's half size. But like, so like, for example, right, Ryan and I, we were at the Defense Tech conference and we both brought our daughters to the Defense Tech conference, right? It's not the fact that you can't experience the MBA, it's just the fact that you're going to experience your MBA completely different. In addition to that too, it's like Ryan and I are close because we both have kids. We were both veterans. We were in the same ocean. And so we have a lot of similarities when we come to each other. Also, just like Nate said, he had one of his best friends from undergrad. My best friend from undergrad also is both a father with his kid and my Sloan and undergrad classmate, right? And so like me and him hang out, our wives hang out together all the time. I think they're going tomorrow to dinner. So you're going to have to build that network, just like normal networking, socializing. But it's an awesome experience. The parents that you love, with similar kids, similar family statuses, like, you will hang out and you will have an amazing time. But yeah, sorry, next.
No, and to piggyback off that, just thinking about it, like having those connections as well, especially like a lot of veterans do come in with, families and things like that. It also enables you to get out and go to those events more because you're not just ditching your family to like sit in the apartment by themselves and stuff too. So, but even like course loads, stuff like that, like I think, at least from like the Sloan side of the house, we're usually doing projects like the second classes are done, or if there's breaks or in the morning, stuff like that is when we do most of our work. So it really didn't affect the family-like aspects of things. I think the one that was more stressful for me with the LGO side of the house was like the engineering project. So if it's like a group project, it's like problem sets or big projects, like those are the ones I'm like tucking my kids into bed and then like, all right, like, see you later, babe. I got to go like just hit the books for a couple hours tonight and get this stuff done. So that was a little bit different, but it didn't really affect the ability to participate in like the group work, collaborate with everybody, network, all the events, things like that. They're all during like reasonable hours. I think it's probably just, you're not going to be able to party quite as hard as all the single people there, heading to the Muddy and all these other places, or whatever they are now. But yeah, overall, like, it was a great experience. I think I shared this before the panel kicked off, but we came in with one kid, had another kid finals week at the end of my first year. So I just pulled like a double all-nighter. And then my wife said, hey, I knew you're going to go to bed, but it's time to go to the hospital. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But it was fine. Like, it all worked out. Like, all the programs were super like supportive, and they like shifted my internship timing around, and like everybody was like super, super helpful through the process. So I don't think it's a hindrance or anything, or it's not going to like hold you back. It's just like something you're going to deal with like you would anything else with family. And like, you're just going to have a slightly different experience, but it's still going to be an amazing experience.
I'll add too, I didn't have children while I was at Sloan, but I had several classmates who were women who had kids while we were at Sloan. In fact, one of my friends had a baby somehow timed it perfectly. If you knew her, you knew this would work out only for someone like her, but timed it perfectly to have the baby during spring break, then went into investment banking and, did the whole thing. So even outside of the vet community, lots of people there will have kids, or will be having kids and sort of are in that stage of life. And even though I was single, I was, going out quite a bit. I was not an LGO, so my workload was much lower. But the family thing was very real, and it was really cool, especially leaving the military, to see it be just a part of your day-to-day life, and have those people around you. So just to offer that perspective for women as well, there were plenty of women having kids while they were going through the program.
Yeah, it's definitely doable across the board. I would definitely, if you have kids or are planning to have kids, don't let that be an impediment to applying if that's what you want to do. Me and my wife, we were both Marine Corps, transitioned out. She's at HBS as well, so we're both going through business school, and we had our daughter the first week of school. So I mean, it was an absolutely hellish first semester, but it's completely possible. Like, once again, the support of your classmates is amazing. They got a meal train going. At this point, half the LGOs have babysat for our daughter, so you're able to go out and participate as well. Like, super supportive system here that can absolutely make it happen. So very family friendly environment. Don't let that be an impediment. I think is the bottom line across the board. It's a good experience. So we'll transition to taking in some of the Q&A at this point. The first question we'll ask is, can you provide any perspectives for students who remain on active duty and return to service after Sloan? I don't think any of us here did that, but we can definitely speak to that if anybody wants to take that. If not, I can.
Yeah, just your respective services will have their additional duty service obligations for the ostracized. So basically, your obligation to go back. Most of the services will also do a utilization tour. So what that really basically means is, like, you'll just go back and, like, for most people, it's an instructor of some sort, whether it's back at the academy, or it's back at like an RTC program, or it's something else. But usually, like, it's almost exactly the same. The only difference is the active duty officers that we have in our class do have ROTC support requirements. And I think the 3 active duty officers, Army officers in our class, literally just supported the ROTC range like twice over the summer. And so they'll do it's not LDAC, I can't remember what it's actually called, camp. It's like camp again. So they do have obligations during the summer, but it's during the summer months. It's like, for them, it's like a free vacation. So, but other than that, they are full-time students. One's an LGO, and he will go back into the force. The other 2 will go back and go teach at their respective utilization tours. But yeah, that's on the Army side, at least. And I assume the other services will have something very, very similar. But again, during after summer to graduation, they're pretty much our classmates. They don't show up in uniform, etc.
I think that answered it pretty well. Next question is there anything you would have done differently during your time at Sloan for those that have graduated, or, for our first year? If not, do you suggest any classes, clubs, labs that you especially loved?
I don't think I would do anything different. What I would say is really take the time to experience all that school has to offer. I think a lot of folks come in, especially vets, at least this is how I felt, and some of my peers, we came in with the idea that investment banking and consulting were really all that was out there. And it can be really daunting because you're going to have a ton of companies that are going to show up within the first couple of weeks that you're on campus. And the recruiting period is going to kick off immediately. And so it can be tempting to go right into consulting and only look at that because of all of the casework and all the prep that goes into it. But I would encourage folks to really take a look at the various company presentations that they put on. So some will be local, they'll host you in their Boston offices. Others will visit school. But just be really thoughtful about what you want to do afterwards. You've just spent the last X number of years in the military, where a lot of your life is dictated to you, where you live, what you do, what command you're in, you receive orders, that sort of thing. So this is really probably the first time in a long time that you've had the opportunity to see what you want to do and decide where you want to go after school. So my advice is just take advantage of that. You'll still have plenty of time for partying and going out. I know we keep saying that as if that's all the MBA is about, but you'll have plenty of time for all of the other things and spending time with your classmates. So just try to immerse yourself in as much of that. And then the flip side of that is don't spread yourself too thin. So I know those two things are sort of at odds. It can also be really tempting to join every club, to go to everything during the day, spend every lunch seeking around different panels. So just set your week every week, maybe go to a couple different things that will reinforce what you're trying to do next. Meet some new people, but don't join every club for the sake of it. And just be really thoughtful about how you spend your time, because it will get filled up very quickly, especially LGOs.
Yeah, I'll throw my bias from the LGO side of the house is one before that, I guess, just make sure you're just networking like crazy. All of your classmates come from different backgrounds, stuff. So just like have like a candid conversation. Just like, what did you do before you came here? Don't worry about like the consulting and all the after stuff. You can learn a ton about industries from people that are like coming to school, because you can find out like why they don't want to go back or why they want to go back to that industry, what they did, what the work is kind of like. And then the other one I'd say is definitely like if you choose Sloan, like you're at like MIT, and so Sloan is like one portion of the school. It's like course 15, that's it. It's one little piece of it. There's like an entire ridiculously like phenomenal engineering majority of the school as well. So find anything you can to kind of bridge that gap. If there's clubs that do stuff jointly with the engineering schools, if there's ways to get even just go learn about different research labs and all the PhD students and all the crazy stuff going on over there. Just try to connect both sides of the school, and don't just live in E52 or whatever like the Sloan building is. Like just try to make sure you're like fighting your way over to the other side of the school as well, because there's so much going on. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think I'll add one caveat to that is I'm currently enrolled in a non-MBA course. It's called How to Make Almost Anything. It's very engineering heavy. I'm literally programming in a RP 2040 chip. It's embedded programming. It's a lot of cool stuff. I love it. I miss it. It's a very nice change from talking about P&L statements. So that's awesome in terms of I can kind of diversify like academically and like interest, which is like what I should be getting out of the MBA. The other part of it, don't forget, you can at Sloan, you can cross-register for anything Harvard side as well. And so during my internship, there was a Sloanie 2015, not a veteran, but Sloanie 2015, who really encouraged me to take the Harvard law class. It's very famous for negotiations. So don't forget, anything on that side of the house is also fair game. Just remember, there's a little bit of pecking order too as well, and a little bit of logistics that has to happen. Like you have to bike over there. But other than that, just all the courses are fair game.
Yeah, I think that's all good advice. There's definitely always 1,000 things going on at MIT at once. So, come in with eyes wide open, but also be kind of persistent about what you want to get out of the experience, and have that as your waypoint as you make your decisions, make your way through it. Just because it can be once again, it can be very overwhelming if you don't really know what you want to get out of the experience. Just because the entire plethora of options is going to be thrown in front of you, and the world is kind of your oyster. You can go into really any industry you want, as long as you put enough time and effort towards it. But if you're going to be sampling all the different industries, you might not have enough time left in the day to actually commit to one of them. So have an idea of what you want to do, but also keep an open mind, and just get after it that way. We talked about both the Sloan side and the engineering side, so this kind of transitions nicely into this next question of what was your relationship with the faculty like, and did you ever feel that the faculty at MIT had an opportunity to personally mentor / support you during your Sloan experience? And I think we can speak to both the engineering and the Sloan side. We'll go ahead and start with the Sloan side, and then we can also talk the engineering side. So whoever wants to kick us off.
Yeah, I'll talk it right now just because I think I'm probably the closest. Right now, I'm TAing, so basically teaching, assisting the two courses. One is one of a core class. It's called Organizational Processes. The other is called Accounting Information for Decision Makers. It's awesome because like the organizational process isn't my forte, and so I wanted to TA that class to network with the class of 2025 because I get to see literally a sixth of them every every week. The other part of the class is it's also great because it's not something I'm familiar with or strong on. I like the engineering side a lot. I like numbers. I like data. And so being organizational process is a good way to make sure I'm kind of like diversified. laterally. The other part is accounting information for decision makers. It's with an amazing professor. His name is called Dr. No. It's amazing because I also get to work with him on a case. I run a small business on the side, and the case is literally about my small business. And so it's amazing talking to him about understanding how the lecture process works, how the case writing process works, how the data looks like, what his follow-on actions are with the case, and then seeing the backside of that is awesome from a student perspective, working with that professor. And again, it's amazing faculty all across the board.
Yeah, one thing I'll add, even as somebody who graduated, coming up on just over 4.5 or so years ago, sometimes you'll stay in touch with some professors. I've stayed in touch with one who was my strategy professor. I've come back and done panels. I actually did one recently this past spring with a couple different professors at Sloan, and it's really great. I don't know, for those of you who are service academy grads, which I'm one, you don't always have the same undergrad academic experience, and you may not get as close to some professors as others seem to be. So for me, it was a little bit of a different environment at Sloan. It's much less of the sort of hierarchical relationship between professors and students. It's much more about you being there to learn as much as you can and to really go into some unique, just like what Sugi was just saying, is being able to experiment, talk about different things that you wouldn't talk about in the traditional classroom setting. There's opportunities for you to work with them as research assistants. There's a lot out there for you to interact with your professor. So don't shy away from it because your classmates won't.
Yeah, and then with regards to the mentorship piece, I took a class last semester called Current Debates of Macroeconomics, and the professor was just phenomenal. And during the class, I was like, wow, I got to figure out how this guy thinks. And then sure enough, you just reached out to the professor, and then we set up a lunch, and we just keep in contact each semester and kind of track my journey. And he's kind enough to give me some advice, and as I look towards my career post Sloan.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is just even I didn't have a super close relationship with any of the professors. For LGO, you have a thesis, you have to write a thesis for that. So I had a mentor on that. My thesis advisors, they were super helpful and amazing. But also beyond just the faculty is all the, if it's the career advisors, LGO has its own, Patty, she's still there. She's amazing. Nobody doesn't like Patty. Ted as well. Ted's awesome. I'll give them all plugs real quick. But they're all phenomenal. We still keep in touch, still trying to find ways to support the program and things like that. So there's other people beyond just the faculty themselves that'll help you navigate your journey, or all these life events we've talked about coming up and things like that as well. And they'll also let you they work there day in and day out and hear all the students talking about professors and hear all the feedback about classes too. So they're also very helpful in saying hey, you might want to consider, this class versus this class, or this professor is really good depending on what you're interested in. So just taking the time to engage with the kind of the whole support system that's there as well, just for advising and thinking about classes and all that. I would definitely take advantage of it too, because it was phenomenal while I was there. I'm sure it still is.
Yeah, I think across the board you'll have pretty good relationships with your professors, especially there are some professors that are kind of renowned across the institution, and everybody ends up trying to take their class. Just sometimes it's not the content that makes the class. A lot of times it's the professor and the presentation of the material. I mean, one of our operations management professors, Sean Willems, he's absolutely fantastic. It can turn a topic like ops management, and I had no idea what it was before coming here, and he made it incredibly interesting. And more than likely I'm going to be going into an operations role after this. A lot of it due to his instruction and driving that passion. So if there's something that you're passionate about, you can find an instructor here or a researcher here to link up with. That kind of leads into there are opportunities to do research assistants, RA positions. If there's something that you're interested in getting involved with, whether it's over at the CISO, which is the Computer Science and AI Lab, or one of the other research labs on campus, you can always reach out and make that conversation. And most of the time, professors or the researchers here will be more than happy to have a conversation with somebody who's interested in the subject and can further the knowledge there. So very, very open staff across the board. rolling into the next question. So Nate, you touched on this before, but how did you end up towing the line between military jargon and real world lingo during the application process? This can be kind of difficult for veterans, and one of the big benefits of reaching out ahead of time and getting in contact with the Vets Club on the admission side, so that we can help kind of screen resumes and help out with some of this. But do you guys have any tips or tricks associated with the military jargon translation?
I mean, I don't know. I'm a little bit far removed from it at this point. I don't remember what I was doing exactly going through, but I think like Ryan said, just reaching out to people, have other people review your stuff. If you have like non-military, like family, friends, people that don't eat, sleep, and breathe military all the time, that can look at it and just be like, what does this even mean? Like, oh, good point. Okay. Because you'll do it at any place, right? We've got all these, things that we say and acronyms, even from being a Sloanie or an LGO, but your current companies, you just talk in acronyms half the time to make it more efficient. So I'd say just reach out to somebody neutral, have them help you out.
Yeah, 100%. I think the only thing I'll add is that, as I think it was Nate, you mentioned it earlier, that don't or it was one of you, don't remove all the things that does make you stand out, that does make you special. The same thing goes, when you're going through your resume, make sure that it stands out, make sure that you're telling the true story. But again, just have the sniff test of your family reading it. My family used to do the whole abbreviation explanation joke with me. They were just like, I need to pause. I don't know what you're talking about. So run it by one of them. Have your other, if you know vets that have gone through the business school process, those are going to be your best friends. They are going to help so much because they've just recently gone through this exact same experience. So the only thing I'll add.
Excellent. So there's a question in the chat talking about finances. I meant to hit on this during our portion of it, but we can touch on this quick, just because this surrounds a lot of questions we get with the Vets Club and on the admission side. So the post 9/11 GI Bill. So there's essentially two routes. Two routes for funding. If you're going to go on the VA side, you have post 9/11 GI Bill, and then you have VRNE, which is vocational rehabilitation and education. That's Chapter 31 or Chapter 33 benefits. You can look into them more. But bottom line is, last year, MIT Sloan with the yellow ribbon, it used to be a capped number of students could get the yellow ribbon. That has been eliminated. So it is now unlimited slots for the yellow ribbon. So how that works is yellow ribbon is 25,000, and then also the school will match that. So that's 50,000 total with yellow ribbon. And then the GI Bill last year was 26. I want to say like 26 and change per academic calendar year. So you're talking that's about 76K for each year, and the delta on top of that, I want to say, was around 8,000 or so. If somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a little bit of a delta between what the GI Bill covers with yellow ribbon. If you're at 100%, that's how you get the yellow ribbon. You have to be 100% GI Bill. So there is a little bit of a delta that you'll be paying out of pocket. Whereas if you qualify for VRNE will be completely covered on that side. But you have to have a disability rating, and then there's a justification process that goes in with it. You'll be linked up with a VRNE counselor. We can talk about that more if you want to reach out to the Vets Club. We're happy to answer a lot of questions on that. But yes, there is a bit of a delta for the funding side. If you're doing GI Bill, it's a minimal amount. You'll make that up in your internship, no problem. But there is that. Looks like we have time for either one or two more questions. So we'll move on. Do you ever wish you went directly into industry instead of going to get your MBA or for the dual degree for the LGO?
I'll jump in. I'm going to say no. Like, I think it was an amazing experience. I think it gave me time to level set coming out of the military. I think it gave me a lot of exposure to different industries, different considerations, like understanding like higher level thinking of like systems level thinking of like how organizations work. Why is someone making such a terrible decision? Someone's complaining in a meeting, like, well, if you really, start thinking about all these other things going on that I don't think I would have like had that little bit of exposure to through MBA or LGO. Also, I think the opportunity coming out of the military to go like do internships, I think is super powerful, especially for my own sake with LGO. Like, I was super passionate about, I was Nate the helicopter guy. So going to like Boeing or aerospace, stuff like that. And I decided by doing an internship, I saw that maybe that wasn't the path I wanted to go. I want to do something else just because the amount of like regulatory safety, all these like super critical, important things, but I was just like, I want something a little bit more fast paced or more like, product decision making, things like that going on. So, but that was just my personal journey. I had a ton of friends that went to Boeing. It's a fantastic company as well. So it's just like, I think it just gives you a lot of, you're always concerned about like, what am I going to do next? Am I stuck doing that? Am I making the right decision? It's a lot of unknowns as you're leaving the military. So it's a great place to kind of take some of that uncertainty out, I think, even though I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Right. But, I think it just helped me kind of narrow down the possible options that I'd want to go.
Yeah, Nate, that nailed it. I feel 100% the same way. I think the other thing I'll add to it is that, the network is really what you're going there for. We've talked a little bit about classes, and they're certainly great. Just being completely transparent, you're going to have classes you don't like or that you don't really care that much about. And that's just the way it goes, right? There's some, elements of it that will be that way. But the real benefit is the network that you're creating for really the rest of your life. Like I said, all of us are still very close from my class. When I was joining a startup, I didn't know the first thing about it. So I reached out to classmates that were at startups. They taught me a lot more about equity and how to negotiate, salary and things like that, just the things that we hadn't done in the military. And so we continue to lean on one another. We continue to provide insight. And it's been exciting now being 4 to 5 years out, seeing what some of my classmates are doing, knowing that, they're entering some of these really cool industries and you'll know people there. So again, just another benefit of going. I echo what Nate said. An MBA is by no means the only thing to do after you transition from the military. If it doesn't suit you or your family, if you can't afford, or, if you're not interested in taking 2 years off to go to school, that's totally fine too. So there's other options. There's the Sloan Fellows 1-year program. There's the Executive MBA. So just take a look at all of them because everybody's got something that fits what they're looking for a little bit differently.
Excellent. Thanks for all your insights. We'll go ahead and wrap up at this point. I'll turn it back over to Terrell. One parting thing from our side, if you want to get a hold of the Vets Club, we just posted the email in the chat. Feel free to email us with any questions. If you need help with any application, resume tips, when it comes time for interviews, we're happy to help you with interview prep along there. Really just reach out for anything. We're here as a support group and an asset to help you make the right decision for your future. I do have a lot of conversations with veterans across the board, and like I said, my wife is over at HBS, and those that are deciding between the two, once again, I value the veteran, and I hold the vet above allegiance to the school. So we help make that decision for the individual and whatever works best for you all. So thanks for your time. I'll turn it back over to Terrell.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you again to our panelists for this evening. You all provided some great insight about your experience here at Sloan, and I actually learned a lot tonight as well, learning more about the financial piece of veterans transitioning, but also the potential culture shock that people can experience. So I'm happy that we have the Sloan Veterans Club to help ease that anxiety and being able to provide a support system for students as they're transitioning. Oops. So I want to share some of our upcoming application deadlines. So for those of you that are interested in pursuing an MBA or the LGO program, our application is now live. For MBA for round 1, our application is due next week. So September 27th is our first deadline for our MBA program. And you'll see that the LGO deadline is November 8th for this upcoming year. As a token of our appreciation for you all joining us tonight, so all of you will receive a application fee waiver for whichever program you're looking to apply to. So that will automatically be applied with the email that you all use for the event tonight. So just make sure that's in alignment when you're applying. If there's any issues that you run into, feel free to reach out to our office and we'll be able to troubleshoot that for you. So there are some upcoming events that we have as it pertains to our identity inclusion series. So I know we shared a lot tonight about being a partner and family. So next week we'll actually have a identity inclusion series that focuses on partners and families as well. So you'll be able to, hear some additional information about how we support our partner and family community here from our significant others of Sloan Club here at MIT. So I definitely want you all to be able to attend that if you can, be able to hear more about, how we support that group. And here's more information about the MIT Sloan Veterans Club. I know we shared the information in the chat already, but here again is the information for the email, as well as their website for you all to join, as well as more about diversity and inclusion here at MIT Sloan. And we want to thank you all again for being here. I have listed the admissions email as well and our admissions website. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll help you navigate this process. So we want to thank you all again for being here and hope you all have a great night.